Hi everyone, welcome to Morozevich channel. In this video, we'll discuss a model game for Black against the King's Gambit. King's Gambit, one of the dangerous openings that Black players can face after e4, e5. I know even some strong players who are like, if they are not ready, they don't really feel like playing against King's Gambit. When preparing an idea for you guys for this video, I kept in mind two things. First, it has to be simple. Number two, I have to give you a plan which is applicable to almost all setups that white players can play. So it's very easy to remember. At the same time, there's not much of work that black players needs to do. To help this, I collected a couple of model games. One of the model games is what we are going to see in this video, and I'll also tell you guys the other model game which you might have to see in case white players come up with different plan. Let's get started. So after e4, e5, f4 is the starting point of the King's Gambit. And after ef4, to begin with, I'll tell you guys what white generally intends to do. This is basically white's dream position. Not in any order, but if he can achieve this, like d4, bishop to c4, knight to c3, knight to f3, and after short castle, sometimes after bishop and f4, they can even go queen d to long castle and start the attack on the king side. That's also there. If white manages to achieve this, I would say definitely this is a dream position for the white players because white has absolute control in the center and very well developed pieces. And on top of all that, a clear target, the f file is open for the white players to attack. Especially we know the f7 point is usually the most vulnerable point. This is exactly what white wants to achieve to begin with when they play the King's Gambit. And also, like, whenever they if it's available, they'll also go after the f7 pawn in the early stage of the game as well. So to begin with, let's see knight f3, which is the main line in this position. Some players have also tried bishop c4 as well as d4, and against bishop c4 there are two ways to continue for black. One is d5, the other one is queen h4. I'm sure there are many other ways as well, but I'm talking about two simple ones. Queen h4 is more aggressive, which can go into a lot of complications. But if you wish to keep the game into more simple positions, d5 might be a great option for black players. And maybe if it works, we'll see if we can cover this in one of the future videos. Apart from that, d4 can also be met with queen h4 or d5 as well. So, I mean, both these options are available for black. But we'll mainly focus on knight f3, which is more or less the main line in this position. Now, black is left with a lot of options. I think almost like we can say like all legal options in this position have been tried by black players in this position. And among them, one of the lines that I noticed a few years back is h6. A very simple move. Basically, black is preparing to play g5 followed by bishop g7. Now, we will see that black players will do almost the same setup against no matter what white does. Okay, for example, if white tries to stop g5 with h4, this might be slightly different. We can start with knight f6 with the idea of breaking the center with d5. Now the point is, we can argue that h6 is definitely a useful move for black, but h4 is not. h4 is certainly a weakening move. h4 pawn itself can be a target for the black players. I mean, especially if white is planning to castle short. At the same time, g4, g3, all these squares tend to become weak, and h4 is generally not considered a reasonable, I mean, a good way to continue for white. The other options that white players have tried is starting with d4 or bishop c4. Both these moves are possible, but d4 is the main move in this position. Knight c3 can also be a reasonable option, but knight c3 can always transpose into the either d4 or bishop c4 positions. So let's start with bishop c4. Now, as I said earlier, black continues with the same routine plan. Starts with g5. Now, let's say short castle. This is not a great option for white because this allows black to generate a very simple counterplay. Again, notice the moves that black plays. This is a routine moves that you are going to play. Bishop g7. Obviously, the whole point of h6 g5, bishop g7, a natural placement for the bishop. Bishop is looking really good there. And now d4. Doesn't matter. Our moves are going to be the same. d6 followed by knight c6. And in this case, white continued with g3, which allowed bishop h3 followed by queen d7. So after white took on f4, I think black castled long and developed his knight to f6. This was a game played by Ganguly from black side, and he went on to win, even though it was a blitz game, but it felt like very simple, very easy to play if white castle shot. So this doesn't seem very right for white. Black already achieved a very comfortable position and went on to win very easily. And the other option for white is to start with d4, which can continue with bishop g7. Once again, the same plan. nc3, d6. And here, instead of short castle and g3, g3 directly makes sense. Because with this move, like white's king side is completely shattered, and okay, I'm not really sure like if white can keep the king on the king side. Better to keep the king on the queen side where we have proper pawn structure there. So this was an idea that was played by Morozevich against Peter-Leko. This was back in 2000. This is one of the earliest games in with this structure. I think the game was drawn eventually, but it felt like black would have definitely done much better. Let's see that. Knight f6, queen d3. Again, look at the same placement of pieces that black is continuing with. nc6 in this case, with the idea of bishop g4. Now bishop f3, knight d4 can be a very simple threat. White defended that with rook f1. And here black continued with knight a5, which seems reasonable. He wants to get rid of that bishop on b3. I mean, rook on f1, bishop on b3. Somehow it just doesn't feel right to, I mean, f7 pawns coming under attack, and it's better to get this bishop out of the game. So knight a5 with the idea of taking out the bishop with the knight. I mean, if black manages to achieve this exchange, definitely black seems very comfortable. And Morozevich continued with bishop a4, followed by knight d7 is what happened in the game, but a simple option can be c6 with the idea of b5, trying to get rid of that bishop no matter what. A complicated line arises here with b4. This goes a little out of control, but you will see in the end, eventually, let's say we reach this position. I mean, we had a series of forcing moves after white starts with b4. And if you think about it, we can definitely argue that black's king is much more safer than the white king. And in the near future, not sure where exactly white is going to castle his king. The king seems to be stuck in the middle. And certainly, it's much more easier to play for black rather than being white in this position. Now, coming back to the main line with d4. Yeah, the game that we checked is Morozevich versus Peter-Leko. It happened in the year 2000. So, you should definitely check this game and understand the ideas. Let's continue with the main game. d4. Again, black continues with the same plan, g5, followed by bishop g7, followed by, I mean, g3, you have to take it. Unless you have the white king castles, you want to open up the g file, can basically complete your development by sacrificing their 4 pawn. But in this case, it makes sense to take on g3 and continue with the same routine plan. d6, knight f6, and now I think bishop c4 should transpose back to the, instead of bishop e3, I think bishop c4 should transpose back to the same game that we saw against Morozevich versus Leko. And here, bishop e3 followed by queen d3 is what Nigel-Mcshane continued with. Knight g4. Once again, we see knight attacking the bishop, and if we can eliminate white's bishop pair, that reduces the pressure from black side. Obviously, it's much more easier to play, and even otherwise, in general, we can understand that exchanges should favor the black side. But black also has to be careful not to spend too many moves moving the same pieces back and forth again, because we are already lagging in terms of development. As you can see, white is much better developed in this position, and at the same time, if white manages to open up the position with the king in the center, it's going to be quite dangerous for black. Black has to keep this in mind, but he continued with natural moves. Long castle was met with c6. So this is the only case I think we didn't develop the knight to c6. Instead, we continue with c6 and rook e1, knight d7. And as you can see, like, white has to launch the attack as quickly as possible without any delay, and white immediately went out with e5, which was met with take on e5. And this is a very interesting moment with a lot of complications. Those who are going to play this from black side, you have to pay attention to this position and understand what exactly is going on. And the way the game went for white, black pretty much defended easily and achieved a very good position, very comfortable position, and went on to win the game as well. Let's see. Bishop h3. I mean, there are some options here, like he can either take on e5, or he can attack the knight on g4, things like that. Other options also which you should be careful with. And bishop h3, knight takes e3, followed by rook e3. It feels like the king is going to be caught in the center, but at the right time, black had the time to castle without much difficulties. But here it feels like black has overextended his kingside pawns. As you can see, the light squares seem to be vulnerable. We have kept the pawns in the dark squares. Like, if this pawn was here, I would say maybe this position is already a winning position for black. But with the pawn on g5, it feels like white might have something serious here. But as we can see, like, the way black played, he played very simple moves and neutralized white's pressure. And as we see, black is already a couple of pawns up, and the most basic rule, if you have extra material, all that we need to do is just trade off a few pieces and reduce the pressure and head into the endgame. And in this case, not to forget, black has the bishop pair as well. Knight e4 was met with knight f6, bishop c8, and here arises a series of complications, forcing moves. But in the end, when everything seems to be over, here we see queen takes b2 is threatened, followed by attack on the king. White reacted to this with knight e5, followed by rook takes a8, and we reach a position like this. White's still a pawn down, but black has the bishop pair. The bishop with the rook against rook and knight. Any day, rook and bishop is generally stronger than rook and knight in open positions. And I would say this position is already close to winning position if you are a strong player. But otherwise, like, it's a very comfortable position to play as black, and should be an easy conversion. Like, you can watch out the game, the full game, to understand how black converted this position into a win. It happened pretty soon, pretty easily. Yeah, I think the rest should be more or less execution. So I think with this video, we have a very simple and clear plan that black players can use after knight f3. So to summarize this, we go h6, g5, bishop g7, d6, and sometimes we go knight c6, and in some cases we go c6, knight d7, knight f6, and more or less we go short castle all the time. So 2 games to remember: Morozevich against Leko, which was played in 2000, and this game, Nigel-Mcshane versus Luke London, 2 great English players. This game was played in 2011. So remember these key ideas, and I think black players should be good to go against the King's Gambit. A very simple and easy plan to remember. And I think I'll see you all in the next video then. And the next video is going to be on King's Indian from black side. So until then, I'll see you all. Take care then. Bye-bye.